Hypothyroidism is a condition where there is a deficiency of thyroid hormone. Now, the commonest cause of hypothyroidism is what we call Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, where the immune system, the body's immune system, attacks the thyroid gland and destroys it. There are other autoimmune diseases which are commonly known to all of us. In addition, hypothyroidism is an autoimmune disease. Like that, you have rheumatoid arthritis, you have bronchial asthma. All these are immune-mediated diseases. So why I said that is that when you have somebody with what we call autoimmune hypothyroidism, we also look for other autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, like bronchial asthma. All these can come as a group. Now talking about autoimmune hypothyroidism, it's usually seen more in adults, and women are more affected, or women are more commonly seen to have this condition. It manifests usually as, classically it is, if you look at our textbooks, the textbooks say that these people manifest with weight gain, with irregular periods, with cold intolerance. In hypothyroidism, it's cold intolerance, which is, to put it simply, people feel unduly cold when their colleagues, peers, friends, husband, wife, whoever it is, they seem to be normal, but this particular individual will feel excessively cold. When they sit in an air-conditioned room, when other people are quite comfortable, they feel excessively cold. Or when a fan is blowing at them, even in hot and humid conditions, sometimes they feel cold. So that's one mode of presentation. Some of them present with constipation, some of them women especially present with irregular periods, and when you have irregular periods, they find it difficult to conceive, so there is an infertility issue there. So and if you look at these people, they tend to have like a dry, coarse skin. They also tend to have swelling of their feet and hands. Sometimes they look puffed up. Sometimes they lose the lateral 1/3 of their eyebrows. We call it madrosis. So these are some of the ways in which this particular condition presents. But having said that, we are increasingly picking these cases up when they get investigated for other conditions. For example, a classic example will be that a woman goes to a gynecologist for irregular periods, and the gynecologist knows very well that one of the causes for irregular periods could be hypothyroidism, orders a thyroid function test, the condition is picked up, and we start treating early because it was picked up early, which was not the case in the past. Likewise, for example, in children, the pediatricians pick it up because these children fail to grow adequately or satisfactorily. One of the tests that they ask for is a thyroid function test, and it gets picked up like that. So nowadays we don't wait for that full-blown presentation of hypothyroidism. We are able to, because our doctors are well aware of the symptoms in which the disease presents, so it gets picked up much early on. So that is about autoimmune hypothyroidism. Then if you look at children, they can present in what we call congenital hypothyroidism. In congenital hypothyroidism, what we see is that children, newborns, present with full-blown manifestations of hypothyroidism, which is largely what we look for is like a large tongue, hernia, an umbilical hernia, which is like the abdominal wall starts to protrude outside sometimes. We call it carotenemia, where the newborn is completely yellow all over, and so forth. That the newborn is constipated also. So when we see these things, we pick up congenital or we ask for a thyroid function test, and we pick this condition up. But nowadays there is what we call a universal neonatal screening for hypothyroidism, where every newborn child is tested for hypothyroidism using their cord blood, and then we look at the values, and it is said that about 5 to 6% of newborns can have congenital hypothyroidism. I'm not sure if I've seen that many, or if I can agree with that percentage, but at the same time it is not so rare. And the important thing is that if we pick it up early, we can start early, we can start treating them early. Otherwise what will happen is that it can affect the child's brain growth even. Then sometimes these children are born okay, but they acquire hypothyroidism later in life. Say for example in their peripubertal, or when they just get into puberty, or a little earlier or a little later, and they sometimes seen with a goiter. It's picked up because they have a swelling over the neck and so forth. But the important thing is that you must remember that we have to treat early, otherwise these children will land up short, their school performance will drop, and generally it will be very difficult bringing these children up if they are not treated adequately. This is how the various forms of hypothyroidism manifest. Treatment part is actually not so difficult. We treat hypothyroidism with thyroxine, which is a simple tablet, very inexpensive also, very cheap tablet. We start with, we have a formula with which we decide the dose. It has a lot to do with the weight of the individual and so forth. So we start on a fixed dose of thyroxine, and then we monitor using what we call the thyroid function test to see if we are treating these patients adequately or not. Now the important thing to remember here is that usually the treatment is lifelong. A lot of our patients ask us this question, and when they hear this from us, a lot of them are dejected, disappointed, but we keep reassuring them that it's not such a great thing because the tablet is inexpensive. We can easily monitor the progress of the condition and so forth. So that's why we say treatment aspect of hypothyroidism is very easy and not complicated at all. So that's hypothyroidism. Regarding diagnosing hypothyroidism, it's very simple and it's very inexpensive also. That's the good part of it. That a simple blood test called the TSH, which stands for thyroid stimulating hormone, which is available almost in every small lab that there is in our country, can actually do this test very effectively, and it's very inexpensive also. It costs only around 100 to 150 rupees. So we can diagnose these individuals with this simple test, and no complex tests are required. I mean, we are aware of many people asking for all sorts of complex tests, but really not required. A small simple TSH can tell us whether this patient is hypothyroid or not. And also this simple test can be used as a follow-up of treatment. I mean, in other words, to see how efficiently the treatment is working in these people. Now there are a lot of questions that patients ask us with regards to the diet and hypothyroidism. And now these stem from the fact that a lot of us think that foods like cauliflower and related, I mean the foods that come under cauliflower groups of vegetables can produce goiter, but that is not true actually in places which has enough iodine. In iodine sufficient areas, these things don't apply. Our people can eat anything that they choose. It will not have any bearing on the thyroid status, but it may have a bearing in areas which are iodine deficient. Say for example, we know that, or there is a feeling that the Himalayan region, Rajasthan, I think some parts of Bengal, and some parts up in the north of India can be iodine deficient. So in those areas, perhaps it may be good for patients to, or people to avoid foods like, or vegetables like cauliflower, because these vegetables are called goitrogens. Now why are they called goitrogens is because in iodine deficient areas these can predispose to goiter, or in other words a thyroid enlargement. So that's why. But by and large, as a thumb rule, we don't believe, or we don't encourage people to believe that the food that we eat has anything to do with goiter. We tell them that it's a myth and they can eat almost anything that they want. Now with regards to homemade remedies, we are not aware of anything that can actually work. I mean, you can take any amount of these things, but if you don't take your thyroxine tablets, nothing of this kind is going to help you. I think we'll be wasting a lot of valuable time, especially if in growing children or even in neonatal age group where children are very small. If we are going to resort to these homemade remedies and think that that is going to solve our problems, what is going to happen is we are going to lose valuable time, because in children, in really small children, for brain growth to happen, thyroxine hormone is very critical. So if you're going to deprive them of this valuable hormone, we're definitely doing a lot of disservice. So important message here is that foods have no association to thyroid problems, and more importantly, homemade remedies strictly is going to be of no use in these situations.